You are listening to the e-flux podcast. All right, we're back with Anton, Brian, Julieta, myself, Kaye.
It would be great to speak about how the team grew, because obviously now we are not just three people.
Yeah, so it was the three of you at the beginning, and then who came next? Was it
Mariana, I think, and Mike.
Mariana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike has been working
Mariana
with us for a very long time. Mariana first. Mariana actually was...
She came to night school, I think.
Even before United Nations Plaza in
That's right.
Berlin, she volunteered to be an intern. Yeah. So this takes us back to 2006. She was about 23 years old or 22. Yeah, just out of college.
So bright. She was doing her Erasmus year in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And wanted to do an internship with us. So she spent 1 year labeling books, because we had this publication project where we asked all the people that worked with e-flux as clients of the announcement service to give us books for a library that we were running, the book COP, remember?
Yeah, not COP, COP.
COP, sorry, it's, English is the second language, strikes again.
Book COP will be next year.
The book police. We will confiscate your
books. She was working then with Pedro and Margarida Mendez. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading a text that they had put out on their own that was about utopias. I'm not remembering the name exactly, but I was so impressed. And then she came to New York, and we realized that we were spread too thin and were having trouble illustrating the texts.
Well, actually, no. She started working with us from Portugal, yeah, and then we actually asked her to move to if she wanted to move to New York.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
She also interned in New York for a short time.
She did, yeah.
Around 2008 or so.
Yeah.
And I remember her telling me very clearly about first stepping into United Nations Plaza and kind of reflecting some of these things you guys were mentioning about how it was a space for real conversation. I think she felt it was something really different and unique and wanted to be part.
Now let's talk about Kaye.
No, next was Mike.
Yeah, Mike worked at Routledge, I think, as an book editor.
Actually, I think we did a job posting.
We did,
and we interviewed him.
Yeah, we interviewed him. That's true. Yeah.
How about talking about how we got into publishing books?
What was the first book you guys published? You began the journal in 2008, and I think the first book came out in 2009. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that was a funny book, no? Because also the idea. This was when we were trying to sort of follow a non-thematic line, and it's interesting that you said, Kaye, that the journal felt strongly thematic, because also many people say this, but then as you know, it's most of our issues are not strictly thematic.
No, and it never feels top down unless there's a special issue. I think that sometimes certain threads emerge throughout the text that speak to each other, which is also really beautiful.
Urgency.
Yeah, and the urgency binds it together as well.
Yeah, the first, I guess the idea for the first book was to also keep it quite open. But then the issue is that we ended up with not a very sexy title, which is e-flux Journal 2009.
May not sound sexy then, but now.
2009 reader. so we kind of end up.
I think the idea with the books was basically that, as much as most of the readership was online, of course, but particularly at the time, it was a very particular readership. For example, a lot of older people simply did not read online. They wouldn't encounter content by browsing internet So their way would be to go to a bookstore, and this is how they come across with new sort of publications, new ideas. So it seemed to be important to also have some kind of presence in that realm, just to include all of that other possible readership.
Maybe it's good to also talk a little bit about the PDF
format,
because it has been around for so long now, and it was never completely. I think it's so functional and so practical that it's rarely like looked at as being as significant as it was.
But that's actually what assigned readers readings, when they get to student groups and so on, they are all coming not from the website directly, but from the PDF. It's really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's also, I think, something that has become quite common since then. But at the time, it was a really, really elegant solution where we got Adam Florin to code a little engine that would basically read or parse the HTML files online and then spit them out in a really nicely designed PDF format, a page layout that
like
Jeff
a robotic
Ramsey
designer, basically.
Yeah.
With human input.
And the joke, of course, with Jeff Ramsey, who designed the page layout, was that he was designing he was phasing himself out,
right,
with this, because it was basically teaching a machine how to do his work for him. But then, as a result, it works quite well.
I mean, for the books, we partnered with Sternberg Press, and I think that Anton was quite taken by thinking about the semiotext books.
It wasn't so. It was semiotext. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
In a way that they were so inexpensive and like small paperbacks that you could put in your pocket that doesn't cost so much, so that students can afford them and so forth. So that
continuing with the theme of availability, let's say, and something that we did not know is if there was going to be any, if they were going to have any relevance or success or demand, because all the content was already available.
Yeah, this was unusual for the time, because the theory at the time was that if you if something is available online, nobody will buy a book of the same content. Yeah, why should people when they can freely get this stuff on our website? But it seemed to be completely untrue. Yeah. So
how many printings of Hito's book by now?
3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean there are a few books that were reprinted quite a few times. But anyway, maybe we should get back to self-criticism.
Anton was saying that we can't just celebrate our achievements.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think we were, just took a break and we were speaking about. Brian had mentioned this global reach, but in fact.
Oh yeah.
But in fact, and then also there's the accessibility question where things are, free or the books are cheap, but yet, of course, it's not completely accessible. There are barriers, and I think it's important to address those.
Yeah, I think if we think about the beginning, of course, our intentions were to deal with a much more, at the time, globalized discourse. But then I think it's also fair to say, if you look at who we really dealt with, it actually is not. It's also compared to what people deal with on a day-to-day level here from different parts of the world. It actually did not reach as far as we had thought at the time. But there are also very good reasons for this, because we wanted to take advantage of the fact that English had become such a kind of lingua franca for the art world. But then, if you really want to be serious about this, then you have to. It's enormously expensive, both in terms of money to properly translate writing from other parts of the world, and
something, Brian, that I really wish we could organize to do is to take all the translations that have been done of journal texts and publish them on the website.
Yeah.
Because the texts have been translated.
Yeah, we've always wanted to do this, but of course it's a large task to also track everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think there are a lot of Samistat translations where people where people translate and publish a lot of our essays on their own.
Yeah, and I think there's been, every time somebody requests a translation, I think there's a pretty nice policy of just saying, okay, we just want a copy for our archive, but go for it.
Well, also in relation to the global discourse, I think that, of course, we are in a time of real reckoning because where we wanted to deal globally, we also find that this hope of this hope of a certain kind of transcultural discourse and understanding is itself also quite expensive because of the amount of understanding, the amount of sensitivity, and the amount of translation, not only for a publication that goes into something like
between
this.
peoples, yes,
between peoples. I mean, I was saying it's almost like this kind of, when I think Ben Bratton spoke about this one of the early supercomputers that was made to track weather. Joao Ribas talked about it. This that was made to track weather or predict weather patterns, but then in order to accurately predict weather patterns, it consumed so much energy and generated so much heat that it started to actually change the weather. So of course
this makes me think, Brian, about the idea that you had very recently of imagined communities.
Yeah, a conference that we are planning together as part of a series of conferences to celebrate 10 years of the journal.
I think maybe more than to celebrate the 10 years of the journal, to figure out what to do next, because the problem of, I really hate anniversaries, because in a way, one wants to sort of celebrate them, but actually, when you're in that moment, what is it that you're actually celebrating? Because things actually...
How to ossify?
Well, things don't get easier. Yeah, they actually get progressively more complicated somehow. And because, let's say, what motivates work or what motivates certain kind of production in the beginning of something, there is this kind of vacuum that needs to be filled, and that has a kind of a very strong kind of energetics, and then what actually happens 10 years later, where, like Brian was saying, to try this computer to predict the weather ended up producing global warming, so I think we should admit that our effect on the world has not only been positive. Probably a lot of younger writers and artists may see us as some kind of authoritative, oppressive weight. A certain style of writing an essay that became a very much accepted format, which maybe imposes a kind of parameters in writing or in thinking about art, culture, and politics that maybe needs to be broken. But I think for us, it's very, very difficult to break it because, we're inside of this bubble, which is probably also why we're doing this comic book issue in a sense, to try to, not be completely sort of, encapsulated into our own stylistical way of doing things.
That was also a bit of the impulse behind Super Community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a way, super community wasn't it kind of like a negative togetherness? No, it was diabolical togetherness. Was the phrase. Where even on the left, the political expectation is that when everyone in the world comes together, you will have a kind of big happy mammal family of warm bodies huddled together in closeness and harmony.
With teeth.
But then, but then, in fact, it wanted to address also I think for the Venice Biennial, for the kind of World's Fair model, a model where everyone comes together, but it actually turns out to be a complete nightmare.
Yeah, because that's what the journal was invited to do, is be part of the
nightmare.
The nightmare. But I think that there are something I think you said when we were just speaking, Anton, was that you might expect that 10 years in things become easier, or there's a kind of like rhythm to things with the journal, but it actually doesn't. And there's been different
thing
formats.
About it becomes even harder. Okay, maybe the methodology is a bit more structured, and we know a lot better how to publish an issue, how to bring it to print, how to commission the text, how to edit them, all of that. But I think that the most complicated thing, which is, what is it about? this somehow does not really, or at least for me, maybe I should not presume to speak for all of us. Yeah, but for me, it is actually seems to be even more complicated now than 10 years ago, for many reasons. I think also for a kind of a very powerful reason that the world changed so drastically in the last 10 years, just in terms of the kind of, what's that word? Ethos? Yeah? Is there such a word?
Yeah.
Ethos.
Yeah.
Where journal comes out very much of the way of thinking that institutions, society, countries will become more and more open. Yeah. So we actually have to, somehow expedite greater opening, like push it further to open up more, to become more transdisciplinary, to become more transnational, to become more and more open in every way possible.
Yeah, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. Where in fact, where we're at right now is the borders are back, nationalism is back. There is like basically
violent vengeance. Yeah.
With violent vengeance. Yeah. So I think maybe for us as publishers, as editors, as people that run this publication, it's actually quite important to try to understand how to respond to this. Yeah.
I mean, it's also something, when we started the journal, the internet held still a lot of promise.
Absolutely, yeah. And now it just seems to be a gigantic oppressive spying device, that perpetuates fake news, extracts personal information, and
in a way, that is the kind of medium of diabolical togetherness.
Right.
No?
Yeah.
When the internet turned and changed its character.
Although it could have always been the promise. It started as a military project, no?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the internet split in two. There is the good internet and the bad internet somehow coexisting.
Like Melanie Klein's breast.
Thing. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But recently, just I'm going to have to leave soon because I have my child's awake. But I recently actually very much enjoyed the editing project that Kaye and I undertook, which was to publish 2 issues on the topic of feminisms. That felt vital and important, and responding to, even in a modest way, to the current temperature.
And we got quite a strong response. I mean, people wrote a lot, and a lot of people, incredible contributions. And I think that's exactly speaking to this kind of, what do we want to do? And there is an agility to the journal where, depending on who's editing an issue, whether it's us, a guest editor, depending on the format, there is a new kind of energy brought in or a new focus. And I think that we try to keep that with, for example, with feminisms, we try to, of course, not just limit that to these 2 large issues, and it's a focus that was there before, but maybe continues more strongly now. And I think, go ahead, Julieta.
No, it was something about articulating a position that was on the air. And I'm just thinking that just to address what Anton was saying as to what happens next and how the world has changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Moving forward also will mean eating our own words and our own, the things that we had set at the beginning as ideals, because now they are just not there, or they proved false.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hope we don't have to eat them, because I hope they have some kind of, at least a historical value. Yeah. So that at least in a historical sense.
Yeah.
But also eating can be nourishing. And not.
Yeah.
I mean, it can
have sauce too.
There is a nutritious value to paper.
Yeah. And I think, also, I'm thinking about different people, guest editors as well, and of very much importantly, the authors as well, who have left an incredible impact that continues in the journal. I think I also wanted to mention that the 4th editor before the last 2 years was Stephen Squibb, and I think that he also brought an incredible different energy to the journal as well. Something that I'm reminded of is, speaking of this question between, a para-academic journal that's not peer-reviewed and all these other things, but I think one of the many things that Stephen brought was kind of a triple interest between having a very strong line on politics and just kind of a really clear sense of what's going on, certainly in the US as well as the world, and also kind of continuing to sit sort of nicely in this Venn diagram between academics and contemporary art, as well as the literary world, making texts even more accessible, digestible.
Dear peoples, I'm going to have to say goodbye because my son is awake.
Okay.
And it's 2:30 here.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Julieta.
Pleasure to speak with all of you. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
So I think, Anton, you were just saying that the question is not so much celebrating, with these anniversary events that are coming up, it's not so much celebrating the 10 years, but asking what comes next. And with that in mind, I'm wondering if you guys can talk about the thematics for the anniversary events that are coming up. I think that they're all under the umbrella of the next decade of e-flux Journal.
Well, we don't yet know what the next decade will be like.
No, I know, but it's
But one of the things that comes to mind is like, okay, if this kind of nationalist, populist, kind of fascist tendency continues in the world,
Yeah.
we may end up in a kind of a peculiar situation because populism and art have rather antagonistic relationship to each other, or at least, let's say, experimental art or radical art, they're not friends, And so one could imagine a kind of a scenario where, instead of a Venice Biennial, you have some kind of like a beer drinking festival, or something
hosted by Brett Kavanaugh,
or his Italian equivalent, or something like that,
exactly,
right, the folksy types,
yeah.
And of course, it's a bit of a kind of a nightmare kind of fantasy, but in a way, it's not totally unreal considering the kind of attacks that you see on, art institutions and cultural institutions that are happening all over the world, which are not limited anymore to, say, Russia or whatever, but, the AfD party in Germany can actually try to take down Documenta, and this is quite real, and it seems like there is not really like some kind of a safe zone for, advanced artistic practices or ideas or anything like that. So that makes one think about like, well, can we actually think about art after culture? Which sounds interesting and very intriguing. We don't yet know exactly what it means. But I think one of the some of the issues in the next year will probably try to map this kind of intellectual territory. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of these right-wing movements they like to describe themselves as kind of reactions to globalization itself, to austerity measures, and to some kind of abstraction of identity that comes with global economy, with neoliberalism.
Yeah, a threat to their own existence.
Yeah, but then in the meantime, or somehow in this discourse, but also, I mean, one has to kind of like to look at the art field itself. Mm-hmm. It's been very hard to sustain the modernist ambitions of the Western modernist ambitions of art on a global scale. It runs into certain kind of frictions of culture and of history on the other side of things. So there's a kind of a danger, of course, if you kind of really drink the Kool-Aid and you really want this kind of transnational humanistic model of art to survive, then it somehow has to be able to integrate, but then also see beyond a certain kind of like basic or even kind of essentialistic notions of culture, right? Which basically, I mean, you can see how, especially when art institutions get drawn into soft power plays. Even kind of moves that foundations, art foundations and cultural foundations make, NGOs. There's a real kind of push to sort of abstract the political and humanistic ideas of art into more general kind of wishy-washy field of culture and kind of cultural relativism and
lifestyle.
So I guess maybe one of the main questions inside the question of what is art, of what is art after culture. Now, is what actually, I mean, when confronted with this question of culture as a given rather than culture as something which is produced through art, what can art be if it also takes these questions seriously?
And what are I think under this question of art after culture, the two of you have come up with a couple of sub-questions or thematics with others.
Yeah, so we're talking about the first conference, the first conference that we will do. We'll deal with the question of exile, and this departs from a really beautiful phrase that Benedict Anderson quotes Lord Acton saying, where Lord Acton says that exile is the nursery of nation and nationalism, which is a really interesting thing to think about if you think that actually the togetherness of the nation actually comes from a sense of estrangement, right? So being estranged from something actually feeds your loyalty, and this is, I think, something that is very familiar in a kind of diasporic or post-colonial sense, but then is also I think an important tool for looking at a lot of the resentment that feeds into a lot of right-wing discourse now as well.
Sure, and it seems that exile is also very much a current condition for a
generalized condition absolutely.
Across the world. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Second conference, which we will do at La Colonie in Paris with Kader Attia, will be on post-colonial science fiction. There will be a conference with Tom Hollard and Doreen Mende at the House of World Cultures at HKW in Berlin on navigation, and on Harun Farouki's late interest in gaming and virtual worlds, and the way that navigation, navigation can function as a kind of post visual paradigm, or a kind of post visual spatial paradigm for how to understand images without or image culture without visuality, right? In terms of space and mapping. So not visual in the traditional sense. And then another conference at Red Brick Museum in Beijing on astrology and materialism, which will also coincide with our first the Chinese language edition of e-flux journal. And then the least formed will be the final one, the fifth one, happening next year here at e-flux on art after culture.
That seems like a great place to stop, unless anybody...
It's a great place to stop.
Thank you.